Hi guys, welcome to Transforming ADHD, where we look at the mental and cognitive processes of the ADHD mind and transform the ADHD from the inside out. Today, we're looking at a woman. She's in her 30s. She just got her first child, a baby, and she comes into me because she has a problem hyperfocusing. Now previously, hyperfocusing was not a problem because she would just work and work and work whenever she sat down in front of her computer. Now with the baby, being at home with the baby and still doing some work, she sat down by the computer, she would kind of close everything out around her, including the baby, which meant that she couldn't even hear the baby crying. So hyperfocus is this awesome state where all that's going on is that flow state of being with the project or the assignment or the task, whatever it is that you're doing, even if you're not meant to do it. But it's a great place to be, except if you have to be somewhere else. Now, this woman needed to be somewhere else. And obviously, if you can't hear your baby cry and you kind of come out of this hyper-focused state and doesn't know if your baby has been crying for 20 seconds or 20 minutes, but you can see she's not well, the baby. It's a problem. And not only are you worried about the child, you're worried about yourself. You're worried that you will never become a good mom and whatnot. So the self-worth is getting a bit of a hit every time, right? So with this woman, I went and talked to her about what her experience was. So not what was happening around her and where was she, but when she was there in front of the computer, what was the experience she had? A lot of people will say it's like being inside a glass bell or inside some kind of thing when they describe it with their metaphor. Now this woman described it as being inside a kind of a tube that was soundproof and not see-through or anything, just totally in that tube with just her and not even her body, just her head and her computer. So the tube was lengthwise directed at the computer. So she was in that tube. That was her experience. When I'm in the tube, when I'm inside of that tube, I get to focus and I can't hear any distractions. There's nothing that can bug me. So the power of that state is crazy. It's so good that whatever work environment she was in, she would be able to focus. Whomever was laughing or crying, unfortunately, she wouldn't be able to hear it. So this is kind of the opposite of the state that most people with ADHD experience in daily life. This woman was able to produce it consistently when she sat down in front of a computer. Now, when you have her problem, you become afraid of the computer. You become afraid of yourself on behalf of your child. So we went to work transforming what was going on in there. So the framework that I work with is transform things from the inside out. If what's going on the inside is a tube that is thick and heavy and so good that you can't hear anything, well, that inner experience, that metaphor, if you will, needs to change. And that's when you transform the metaphor, you transform the experience. Inputs through the tubes. And she was able to do that with like building an intelligent tube that would allow her to do just that. And while we worked through this, we constantly kind of mind tested it. It's called future pacing, where I kind of send her off into the future and have her experience, what is this going to be like in the real world when you do this? And she could repeatedly say, it's not good enough, it's not good enough. This is what it needs. It needs to be intelligent. It needs to be kind of an intelligent filter that doesn't let in the news and doesn't let in other people's comments and coughs and whatnot, but it lets in my child, it lets in my husband, it lets in my boss, and whomever else needs to be able to contact me without getting in front of my face and kind of into the tube. So when she was able to make this transformation of the tube, so it became kind of a power tube instead of this just hyper-focus with no boundaries tube, she was able to stay focused at work and stay focused when the baby was sleeping, whatever else was going on around her. But when the baby woke up, she was able to let that input enter her mind and break the state she was in. So basically this means for you out there, metaphors matter. What we say is really what we think, and what we think is what shapes the way we are in the world. So when we think of ourselves as being in a hyper-focused tube or whatever your metaphor is, then that's the experience you are in the world with. If you're a parent to a child that has hyper-focus, you know this state from the outside looking in. If he's on his iPad and you try to talk to him, there's nothing entering his mind. He won't even be able to recall what you said if you break his state. So if your child has this, it's not a problem. It's a problem when you can't break it in a good way. So one thing is that you want to work on your ability to break it in a good way, and then you want to talk to your child about being able to change his view on that state so that he really gets to still enjoy it, but be able to break it in a way that's good for him when the right input is allowed in. Watching me talk about it kind of made you aware, oh, my metaphor is a tube, my metaphor is a glass bell, my metaphor is something else. What is your metaphor? Please write down below in the comment section, and I'll comment back to you on what you can be aware of, and I might even make a video just for you to talk about your way of moving through that metaphor. I'd love to hear from you. Also, do click the subscribe button below if you're interested in more videos like this, if you're interested in how you transform your ADHD from the inside out and your child's ADHD.